Hello and welcome back to the boatyard, where I have my cabin cruiser, Twiggy, stored with a tarp over the back end where it has been largely undisturbed over winter. However, with the temperatures now starting to creep back up to 15 degrees Celsius and even above, maybe now is the time to start getting back under there and finishing off what I started in replacing the transom. As in many matters, you can't make an omelette without breaking eggs, and therefore, before I can actually get on with the good bit of putting the new transom in and all that, I have to do further destruction on the boat, because if you saw the earlier videos, you'll know that I accidentally made some holes where there shouldn't be holes, and in order to fix those holes, I need to make those holes bigger so that they have something good to put new fiberglass onto to patch those holes over. So to start with, today, it's time for grinding and sanding and making more mess. Here you see is one of those holes. I need to grind that out, make it much bigger so that I've got a space to put some fiberglass in. Initially just a layer of 1708, and then I'll fill the gap with a thickened resin, and then ultimately go over the whole thing when I put new fiberglass across the entire back once the new transom is in. But to do that, that needs to be ground out into a hole the size of which I can do something with. Not only that, but there are also numerous little holes where things once were. And there's these screw holes over here. That's holding something fairly useless on the other side. There's a previously filled hole here. You've got these holes that were holding on a metal bracket that the outboard bolted to, but they went straight through into the wood. So I need to grind all these out as well. There's another random hole that I don't think does a lot on the other side. You've got things riveted on. This gas isolation valve has screws going through. I'm probably going to leave that well alone, actually. But there's also cracks in the gel coat and things which all need drilling out ultimately. And then you've got random screw here, which I don't think does anything on the other side. All of these holes need to be taken out and filled. And then there's the other, underneath that tape, there's the other hole on the other side. So lots of grinding out of holes in preparation for filling.
On the recommendation of Captain Joe Buskins of Fish Bump TV, which is my go-to YouTube channel for everything fiberglass related, he suggested getting one of these, a cheap angle grinder. This cost me 30 quid from Homebase when it was closing down. So I put a disc on it, and let's see how well it does. Right, should have put gloves on. I tell you what, he wasn't wrong. That's doing an amazing job.
Well, no surprises that, never having used an angle grinder before, I did get a little bit carried away. Actually, I was having so much fun, I kept forgetting I was supposed to be doing this, for a reason. It was just enjoyable carving out the hole. But that's definitely wide enough that I can put some fiberglass across that and then fill it. Oh, now I may have accidentally gone through a bit too much there. Never mind, it's all going to be wrapped over with new fiberglass at the end. Don't worry. Apart from widening out those things so I can patch them over, this bottom lip is going to need a little bit of chamfering, sanding, gently fading on the edge so that when I put the new fiberglass on it, it has something to blend onto. So I'm going to try and be a bit more gentle with that and do all that across there. Then I'll do the hole on the other side, and then I'll get the Dremel out and do all the little screw holes. I think I did a better job on this side. Practice makes perfect and all that. Ignore the gaping hole at the bottom, we'll gloss over that. I think that is enough angle grinding for now. If I do any more, I will literally have just demolished the entire boat, which, contrary to what you might think, is not the plan. I'm now going to get the Dremel out with its little fine burring tool thing on it and just go at some of those screw holes and widen them out, ready for a bit of filler paste. Well, I've done a little bit of dremeling. That was a couple of holes and some scratches. Those are a couple of holes now widened out. And yes, they do go all the way through, but they're widened out to have some filler. I'd forgotten how bad it was here. Loads of holes, which I will need to fill. One there. And then there's a couple more here that need doing. I have made many holes. This is a good thing because holes can be filled. Annoyingly, some of them have got screws in them and I didn't think to bring my drill to drill out bits of screw and bits of metal that are stuck in there, so I'll have to do that another time. But this is good progress, I think. I'm ready now to come back with filler for the holes, which will just be a normal fiberglass fillery stuff, gel coat filler. In fact, I think I've still got a tin of that at home. And then I shall buy some new vinyl ester resin. Apparently it has a 3-month shelf life, which is rather annoying because I bought a load of it at the end of last summer thinking I was going to be able to finish the transom before winter. So if anyone is an expert on vinyl ester, does it just stop working after 3 months, or does it simply get less sticky? Obviously I want to use brand new fresh stuff when I put the transom on, but can I still use the old vinyl ester for something internal above the waterline stuff? Maybe as a gunge for filling some of these holes. I don't know. I probably need to speak to the manufacturer about it. Anyway, that is progress, and now I'm ready for when I next come along. I shall fill holes and fill up those things on the edges with the fiberglass and the gunge as previously mentioned. It's time for lunch, you know. It's a cheese sandwich. I've just taken the solar panel off. I didn't actually intend to, I just started looking at it, seeing how the brackets were holding it on, and then the next thing you know, I'd taken it off, so I didn't film. Anyway, it's removed. It was ugly. I didn't like it going over that hatch, and the hatch is supposed to be openable so you can let air in, and the brackets that were holding it on were really very ugly, so I will repurpose that either here, or potentially I could use that on narrowboat gentian, even as an interim kind of thing. I'm not sure. Anyway, that's done, and now I'm going to return my attention to the inside of the boat. There is yet more sanding that I can be doing in here to smooth off all these surfaces before I add the insulation and carpeting. And then there are things like this block of wood which is screwed through from the top side, which is very ugly. It was holding the cabinet over the back of this, which is all very well, but given the horrid screws up above, I really don't like that bit of wood, and I'm going to remove it. You may recall from ages ago that there are lots and lots of little old screw holes inside the cabin that are going to need filling, so I think the Dremel is going to get used again. You know what this means? Having removed the solar panel, I can open the hatch for the very first time. Fantastic! Going to be glorious going along with that open in the summer, if the boat ever makes it back to the water. Right, time for some dremeling. There are little tiny screws that were holding the cupboards on that are still embedded in the fiberglass. It's quite annoying. There is a lot of activity around the boatyard today. I'm not even sure you can see me through all the dust on the camera lens. Hang on. Little kiss for you. I have Dremeled. I've Dremeled extensively to the point where the Dremel battery has run out. So I'm going to stop Dremeling and turn my attentions instead to the sanding inside, getting rid of old bits of glue and flaky paint that would be bad to adhere the insulation to. And also take off the other half of this ceiling strut, the one that's all soggy from the screws coming through the windscreen. I'll attack that with the multi-tool, I think. No, you know what? I'm going to unscrew the screws holding that bit of wood in. They really annoy me. Well, that is going to need a little bit of filling, but at least someone had the good sense to put lots of sealant around those screws. One of the few places where water won't get through into the boat. And now I shall take the multi-tool to this. Despite the wood being very, very sodden, which it still is despite the recent hot weather, it's actually putting up quite a bit of a fight. I think there are some bits that are still dry, even though the bulk of it is soaking, and that is still firmly attached to the fiberglass, so it's been quite the nuisance. It's really not wanting to come off. I think I may need to buy a different blade for the multi-tool. So I'm getting a bit irate. So I've decided to stop, take a zen moment and just chill, enjoy the sunshine coming through the hatch, and then either give up for the day, because I'm reaching a point where I'm just irritated, and it's not good carrying on with power tools when you're irritated. So I'm just going to have a few minutes to chill, maybe have something to eat, again, a little bit of a snack, and either then carry on with a bit of sanding or just call it a day. I'll let you know in a minute. I have been fortified by a cup of tea brought to me by a friendly chap at the marina, so I am in fact going to get the sander out and have a go at a bit more sanding here, getting all this loose and flaking paint off. It is a little while later, and I have in fact sanded the entire cabin. I didn't bother filming the whole of that because even speeded up with maybe some comedy music attached, it's not very interesting to watch. Someone is doing a lot of very loud grinding on a nearby boat, so I hope you can hear me over the din. There are some parts of the boat that I just can't get into with this sander. It's a reasonably large disc, 120mm, and you know, some of the angles and curves and things I can't get into. But all the flat surfaces I've had a jolly good go over, and I think all the loose paint that's going to come off has come off. So with a good vacuum and a wipe over to remove any dust, and maybe I'll use a acetone wipe, or what else have I got? I've got isopropanol alcohol and acetone. Things to wipe down and get rid of all the dust and make it clean for the sticky. I should be ready to start sticking in the self-adhesive insulation. It's not massively thick. It's only it's only a sort of token attempt at insulation. The boat isn't big enough for anything massive, but it's self-adhesive on one side and silver foil on the other, and I'm going to put carpet over the top of that. And I think I'm ready to start putting some of that down. Obviously, I don't want to make it too smart in here before I've finished making any more mess. But at the same time, the impatient person within me just wants to go, do it, do it, do it, make it look nice. So I may have to restrain myself. I can already see a bit I've missed on the sanding because the sander was too big for that. But pretty much ready to go. And with that, I'm calling it a day. So thank you for watching. Cheerio.